Welcome back, everyone, to Box Podcast. Yes, we are back. F1 is back. And I think Miami delivered. There is a lot to go into. It was obviously a sprint weekend, so there is a lot for us to dive into. And I must say, the race was action-packed. But if you're new here, please do give us a 5-star rating, whatever audio platform you're listening to us on. It really does make a difference to the podcast. And we appreciate it. We love it when you comment, so do that where you can, both on YouTube and on Spotify. If you are watching on YouTube, do give us a like rating. That makes a massive difference. And subscribe if you want to see more of this content. If you do want to see even more content, then head over to BoxBox Pod on both Instagram and TikTok, where you can get exclusive BoxBox content weekly. Anyway, I won't bore you with any more of this because we do have a lot to go into. So let's get on with the show.
All right, guys, welcome along to a brand new episode. And look, firstly, apologies for last week. I did do an episode. Luke couldn't be bothered to upload it.
Not true.
Here we go. Here we go. Everyone sit down, strap in.
Matt,
Luke is back.
Matt actually knows. This is funny, right? This is funny. See, this is what we call small penis energy. You know, when someone has to bring someone down, even though they know the truth. He knows I tried to upload that episode to Spotify maybe 4 times. And for whatever reason, it was just failing. Then, for whatever reason, which I still actually haven't got to the bottom of, I have a thumbnail file that I adjust every time. Okay, I've created like a template that I use so it's easy to edit a thumbnail. It still will not open.
Oh, really?
And I don't know why.
I'll let you off on this one.
So, and, you know what? If you're going to try and expose me, you told me not to upload it because you said it was SHIT.
I did. It wasn't it was like 20 minutes long. To be fair, yeah, you're right. Anyway, I did do some clips. There was some clips that went out still on social media. So go and check us out on all social media, TikTok, Instagram. But welcome back. We are Box Podcast. And I have to say, I thoroughly enjoyed that race. As a neutral, not as a Ferrari fan, but as a neutral, it had everything. It had spins, it had overtakes, it had the change of leader, 5 times? I think there was 5 different drivers who led that race.
Crashes.
I thought, sorry?
Crashes.
I thought it was great. And actually, Miami, go back a couple of years ago, we gave Miami a bit of stick. But actually, the last 2 years, Miami has delivered. When you think back to last year, it was a very good race. Obviously, Kimi Antonelli got his first pole last year in the sprint, I think. It was actually a very good race. So overall, we'll dissect it now, but do get in touch. Do let us know what your thoughts are on it. Luke, where would you like to start?
Let's start at the beginning.
Okay. Good.
Team-wise, do you know what? There's a team I actually want to talk about who I think I think their achievements are flying under the radar a little bit, and that's Alpine.
Yeah, they look good. They do look good.
I must say, some turnaround, right? We know that moving out of the, what we consider the turbo hybrid era, they were the team that was competing with McLaren. Not on the front, sort of best of the rest. McLaren then, of course, went on in the ground effect era to win world championships, both drivers and constructors. And it just seemed to get worse and worse for Alpine. And then Flavio Briatore came in. They went through Esteban Ocon. They went through Jack Doohan. That was a whole scenario in its own. All this instability, there's a lot of notoriety around Flavio Briatore. We saw what he was like in Drive to Survive. I don't think he rubbed many people up the right way. But then, actually, is the proof in the pudding? Because they've come out and they are best of the rest in this new era of cars, I would say.
I think if it wasn't for the crash yesterday, both both drivers would have been on for points. I think Franco Colapinto finishing a P7 is, I think, his best ever result. Is very impressive considering the amount of pressure this guy has on him. You know, not just from his own country, you know, being Argentinian and all of this, the pressure to deliver, but from Briatore. It was a difficult year for him last year, but he's come into it and he's starting to gel with this new era of car. And actually, it's really nice to see, because we've said, look, we want Colapinto to do well. And yesterday was a very, very professional drive.
Yeah. And look, he finished P10 in the sprint as well. It was a very good weekend for Franco Colapinto, but not just Colapinto. It was a very good weekend for Alpine. I know you can look at the race. Look, just because Pierre Gasly crashed out doesn't mean the team won't be looking at this and thinking, yeah, we can take a lot of positives from this, because both drivers were on for points. You're right. And Pierre Gasly has consistently looked strong in Alpine, even when the car was rubbish, let's be honest. You still looked at Gasly and you thought, yeah, if they get him something that is capable of picking up points week in, week out, he will do it.
But we've seen it over the years in the RBs, you know, like he's always AlphaTauri, he's always delivered. Do you know what I mean? Picking up a race win he should never have picked up that race win in Monza, you know, but he's the one who, you put him in the car, give him a competitive car, he will deliver.
But like you say, there was a lot of question marks around Franco Colapinto, from myself included.
Oh, you hate him. Oh, God, the amount of hate you have for him is outrageous.
No, I just, for whatever reason, have some sort of beef with Colapinto fans, even though I stress every time that I really want him to succeed. Now, Franco Colapinto this weekend especially, yeah, I think we saw the best of Franco Colapinto this weekend. Actually, you know, I think the best is yet to come, but I think this is the best of Franco Colapinto that we've seen.
No, I agree. I thought it was very good. I mean, that crash for Pierre Gasly looked nasty. Fortunately, he's okay. And look, there's been a lot of criticism over the halo over the years. Oh, it's ruining the sport. What is this? But another prime example of the importance of it yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, once again, you know, saving lives. That is what it does. And I think there's less and less criticism of the halo now. I think people criticised it when it first came in because it was ugly. I actually think, personally, if you go back and compare F1 cars without the halo, they look better with the halo.
Yeah, I agree.
And maybe that's just like when you've got a mate that wears glasses and then you see him without glasses and you're like, Christ, put them back on. You know, whether it's just that because I'm so used to it now, but I actually think they do look better. And look, we should talk about Liam Lawson's involvement in that crash.
Yeah.
Initially, as it happened, I thought, oh my God, man, come on, Lawson, what the hell are you doing? It turns out he had a gearbox issue that meant he couldn't slow the car properly. And that has been, you know, all signed off with the stewards. Apparently him and Pierre Gasly are all sound with each other. Otherwise, it would have just been a stupid move.
Yeah. Well, Lawson has come out afterwards and he said, it sucks for both of us, obviously. I just went into last corner and when I braked, I lost the gearbox and went into neutral. I basically had no gears and I couldn't stop. It's not something I've had before. Obviously, it's quite a big issue for us and it's what's meant we had to retire the car. It's a shame because it's obviously taken Pierre out as well. We haven't really been quick enough this weekend. We've had a good start. The first lap was really good. I made up a lot of places and well inside the top 10. So obviously really difficult for RB, for Lawson. You can see just a lock-up when he went into Pierre Gasly. So it just seems like a racing incident. It's unfortunate, but fortunately both drivers were okay. So
yeah, you know, and that's the beauty of safety in F1 in this era. Like, you can have a crash like that, which imagine if you're driving to Tesco and that happened to you in the car. Like, you would be shaken up, right? Probably bit bruised, cut, you know, even potentially seriously hurt. But due to all the safety implementations that we have in F1 now, they're able to, you know, Pierre Gasly walked out of that. That, you know, he probably got checked over by the medical team and felt absolutely fine.
The police would have to turn up. They'd have to cordon it off. There'd be traffic all the way back to Brighton. You know, like it'd be awful. It'd be awful. Let's just touch on RB again. Obviously, as we know, Liam Lawson retired from yesterday. A bit of a difficult weekend altogether, really, for RB, really, wasn't it? Arvid Lindblad ended up finishing P14 yesterday. They weren't really anywhere, were they?
No, they weren't. And I think it was always going to be interesting coming back from this long break that we've had, because we know that so many teams were bringing upgrades and the grid was going to be all over the place. But I think they will look at this weekend and be really disappointed. You know, the fact that not only they've had a mechanical failure, which led to a DNF, they were also nowhere to be seen anyway. You know, it might be a little bit different if they had this failure, but they were running comfortably in the points and we had seen them perform well in the sprint and quali was strong for them. But it wasn't. They were nowhere to be seen this weekend.
Yeah, disappointing weekend for them. But I think, like we've always said with RB, they will be one of those teams that will turn up one weekend, get some really good points. The next weekend, they're really nowhere. Unfortunately, this weekend was one of those weekends. But I think, Lawson showed some good quality. Like he said earlier, he was in the top 10 for a good period of time. So I think they'll take some positives, but I think it'd be one of those where they'll think, let's move on to Canada. Where would you like to go next? Shall we go to Aston Martin? I mean, look.
Yeah, they're in the mud.
Fernando Alonso P15, Lance Stroll, well, pretty much last P17. Actually, Bottas was last, sorry. Did you see the stat about the qualifying, that the F2 lap was quicker than the Aston Martin?
Yeah. I mean, that's outrageous, isn't it? I mean, that is, that is inexcusable. I don't think, I know a lot of people talk about the regulations and the cars, but this is nothing to do with the regulations. This is what Aston Martin and Honda have put together. This is, they're in trouble.
And considering they've had this break as well, I was expecting to come back and see some improvement. We've seen nothing. There has been, I can't think of a positive for Aston Martin this weekend. Oh, okay, they finished the race.
They finished the race. But isn't that bad? That's where they are. All this investment, Adrian Newey, they've got all this hype around the team leading up to this season, and it could not have gone more wrong from them. And what we're actually hearing now is that nothing will change until after summer for them. So it's going to be a long couple of months for Aston Martin and Fernando Alonso. I
can't wait to hear all, Alonso fans going, oh, look, yes, he's a top tier driver. He's one of the best on the grid. It's just unfortunately he has a, difficult car. Look.
There is every possibility that Fernando Alonso is cursed. Because honestly, this could only happen to one man. There's only one man in Formula One who could turn up to a Formula One car and it be slower than the slowest F2 car. And that's Fernando Alonso. There's a lot of talk around Fernando Alonso being one of the greats, and we had this debate all the time. Is he in the same conversation as Max, Lewis, Sebastian Vettel, all these drivers? But we always say, well, he's not done anything since 2006. And then the rebuttal to that is, yeah, but look at his luck with teams that he's gone to. Yeah, maybe he is just cursed.
There you go. He is cursed. He's cursed. It's a fact. Let's talk about our mates Cadillac. Sergio Perez P16, Valtteri Bottas P18. They finished the race. Well done. I don't know what to say about Cadillac. I don't. Valtteri Bottas, right, got knocked out in Q1, was walking down and just waving to the camera like, he's just there for a day out. Like, he's just excited. You've been knocked out. Like, what is this? At this moment in time, I'm going to say it. They are a joke of a team. And I don't care what you say about, they're a brand new team, they're gelling in. They're 4 races in. They've got 2 experienced drivers there. They're starting off the regulations the same as any other team. Come on. Surely you've got to be doing better than that. You're finishing behind an Aston Martin that is a tractor. It's inexcusable. Inexcusable.
Yeah, I definitely don't like this argument that, they're a new team and therefore, let's just allow it. I think you make the fair point that everyone's coming into these regulations off like the same foot, really. And I know that might not be exactly true for Cadillac because they haven't got any prior experience in F1 and maybe they started developing things a little bit later. I like to think not, because it was only announced last year that they were going to join.
Okay.
They must have known they were going to make that bid like a few years before.
Also, I agree with what you say, their lack of experience or whatever, but surely they didn't just get, Barry, right, from Morrison's to come along and go, right, you're going to be my team principal. Jared from QuickFit, you're going to be my, race engineer. They obviously got experience within that team. So it's not like they've never done F1 before, surely. They're surely...
No, and that's where I think it's fair to criticise them and say, they're well off it. We always said, the more teams, the better, right? If we have 11 teams, 12 teams, great. But let's not just have teams for the sake of having teams. And I know a lot of you are going to be sitting at home thinking, wow, after 4 races and this is the criticism. Yeah, I think it's kind of fair because of how slow they've been. It's not like the Cadillac is unable to race any car, even the Aston Martin, which we can sit here and absolutely destroy the Aston Martin and the Honda engine, but then be like, but it's okay, Cadillac are new. I think that would be unfair.
By the way, Jared from QuickFit, he's good. He's good. He's going to turn out.
Not heard of him myself.
No, you're missing out. Right, where should we go next? Let's go to Audi. I'm a bit perplexed with Audi, really, because Hülkenberg, I mean, he DNF'd yesterday. Bortoleto P12. I was expecting a bit more from Audi at this point of the season. In all honesty, they're quite. The car seems very unreliable. They've had a lot of DNFs and a DNS as well.
In fairness, they've just lost their team principal.
Yeah.
Judas Wheatley has just left the team, and they're probably like, oh great, what now? Like you say, they've been a little bit inconsistent, but I think they were a package that we looked at and we thought, yeah, Audi are going to be okay. They have had some reliability issues and they have yo-yoed a little bit, but now they've also lost their team principal. That's a massive shake-up. When you consider they're a brand new team, Jonathan Wheatley hadn't been there massively long in the grand scheme of things. And to then vanish sort of 3 races into the season in brand new regulations, I think that's going to unsettle the team massively.
But how lucky are you still that you have an experienced team principal in the likes of Binotto, who's done it at Ferrari? Well, I say done it at Ferrari. Didn't deliver much at Ferrari, but he was a team principal at Ferrari. So, some teams lose big players and they don't have anyone really to back it up afterwards. But Binotto's he's been an experienced team principal. So, I agree to a certain extent that it's a bit unsettling, but the core group has been there since the Sauber days.
Yeah. No, I mean, I can't argue with that. And they do have a great driver lineup. I don't think anyone disputes that Bortoleto and Hülkenberg are not a great partnership. And yeah, I would say Audi will definitely not be satisfied with this weekend. I don't think they'll be delighted with how their season is going, but I also don't think they'll be devastated about it. I think they just need to find a bit more consistency. That
We
that's
know what
it.
they can do. You saw that last year. They turned it around. So the car looks relatively good in areas. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see how they turn it around.
And the one thing that I really like about the Audi in particular is that from an aero perspective, it looks different to every other car. Like it really stands out from a visual stance point from every other car. And I like that because the fact that they're still performing with this car that is different means that they found something. You know, they're looking at it a little bit differently to the other teams. So they've got something in there, but it's no good if, you know, your car's setting on fire on the way to the grid.
Yeah. We shall see what happens with them. Haas, Esteban Ocon, 13th. Ollie Behrman, P11. I thought he was going to catch Alex Albon at one point, but the gap, he just couldn't close it down. So, look, Haas are Haas. We've said this many times on the podcast. They'll have good weekends. They'll have bad weekends. One of these weekends was a mediocre weekend for Haas.
Yeah, you know, it's nothing to write home about. They're in no man's land. You know, P11 and P13 is kind of not the last place you want to be, but it's certainly not the first place you want to be. But if you were Cadillac and you had just finished P11 and P13, you'd be pretty delighted with that. I know that sounds ridiculous, but you would be. I think Haas will be a little bit disappointed that they don't get at least one driver into the points every weekend. I think that's kind of the standard that Haas need to be targeting, kind of like the other teams. And I know it's super competitive, and you might even consider it unrealistic for Haas to finish in the points every week, but that is the target for them because it's wide open. You know, I know we think that Alpine at the moment are best of the rest, but we see different cars finishing in the points all the time. You know, we had both Williams in there this weekend. So that should be the target for Haas. So they will walk away from this weekend, I think, very disappointed.
Yeah, I agree. Williams, welcome back. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's not anything to write home about yet, but you picked up points this weekend. So solid, especially after that break, especially after the difficult start so far this year, to turn that around and come away with, you know, points this weekend is a very positive return. So Carlos Sainz P9, Alex Albon P10. They looked relatively good.
Yeah, they did. I mean, we even saw them racing Max Verstappen in the Red Bull. Yeah, I think Williams will be, they're winners from this weekend. They have had a real poor start to the regulations. Especially, we heard so much from Williams, James Vowles, like, forget about 2025. It's all about 2026. That's where we're at. You know, all our hard work is going there. All our finances are going there. And then they turn up with a car that is nowhere to be seen. It can be humiliating for a team that sort of talk all this talk and then they don't walk the walk. So for Williams to pick up points is great. I mean, I'm delighted to see the Williams finishing both in the points. We know they've got two very good drivers. We know that the team is good. We've seen how James Vowles was able to push that team forward towards the back end of the regulations last year. We were just expecting so much more from this season. So if they can kick on from this point onwards, then great. If we see Williams finishing in the points every week, I will not complain about that.
No. It's interesting. When you look across the whole top 10, 7 of the drivers were powered by Mercedes team. 7 out of the 10, which is... Yeah. If your Mercedes engine's a power unit, you're looking at that. It's a very strong return this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, you are. it's interesting because we saw all the news come out about the duo and it basically saying that they think Red Bull's got the fastest engine. But I would say the proof is kind of in the pudding there. That it looks like Mercedes do have the strongest engine. We know that straight line speed is important at this track because we've got some very long straights. And yeah, maybe that is what was reflected in the results, because if we know the Ferrari's got a poor engine and Cadillac didn't perform particularly well, they never do. But even Haas, we just spoke about them struggling. So yeah, that is very interesting. Look, we said coming into this season, any team that's got a Mercedes engine is going to be pretty happy.
No, I agree. Ferrari, you are cursed. Like, I don't know what do we have to do for you to actually be competitive? Last year wasn't a great year, okay? It was a write-off.
Terrible.
We came into this year, you started off in testing looking good. We were like, this is the year, lads. This is the year. We're 4 races in. 2027 is going to be our year. I'm going to start that now because this year is not our year. We look atrocious. Charles Leclerc, fair play to him, looked very good at that point, in points yesterday. Okay, Lewis Hamilton got obviously the damage with the collision with Colapinto, but the pace just isn't there, and they look like the 3rd, 4th best team on this grid now. Which when we started the season, we were very, very optimistic. I was on that bus. I was driving that bus. I'm off it now. I've parked it up. It's not going anywhere.
I think the biggest disappointment is that Ferrari look like they have a great aero package, like a really good aero package, and the pace in the engine just isn't there. No. Also, the worst part actually is that now with the regulation change to the start procedure, it's nerfed Ferrari's only real strength of getting off the line. We knew that they could qualify P5 and first corner they're in the lead. Now we don't even have that. I think Ferrari will be very disappointed because it doesn't look like an aero issue. So it's not something that can be fixed easily. We know we're not seeing the engine upgrades until after summer, late summer. So it's kind of pain until then, really. I think we might see Ferrari strong at certain tracks, but yeah, they're going to be. Yeah, I think it's another season of disappointment for Ferrari. I do.
But this is the thing. I've seen comments about that. Oh yeah, but this is okay because Ferrari will be strong here. You need to be competitive week in, week out. That's what you are seeing from the likes of Mercedes. You've seen that over the years with Red Bull, McLaren. You need to be competitive at every race. And Ferrari just don't do that. Lewis Hamilton finished 53 seconds behind Kimi Antonelli. A Ferrari finishing almost a minute behind is embarrassing. It is embarrassing. And regardless of whether he had damage or not, his qualifying wasn't there. That was poor over the weekend. They're just not there. And when are we actually going to get off to this point where Ferrari, we keep saying, are one of the biggest teams on the grid? They're not. Okay? It's like Man United of football. Okay? Oh, they haven't won a championship in years, but they're still one of the big teams. They're not. They're just not. And this is painful. I'm a Ferrari fan. I'm a Lewis fan. I was really optimistic coming into this season. But all we're seeing is, oh, we got a podium. Oh, we finished P4. We finished P5. It means nothing. The Tifosi deserve a championship. Lewis deserves a good car. Charles deserves a good car. They deserve to be fighting for championships. These are world-class drivers there. It's just embarrassing. It really is embarrassing.
I'm going to go out there and say I think embarrassing is a little harsh. I think Ferrari have come out with a largely strong package. Let's not forget that Charles Leclerc is 3rd in the championship. Lewis Hamilton is 5th in the championship.
How many
They
points
are
behind
currently
Kimi?
running. Huh?
How many points behind Kimi already?
Charles is 41 points. Lewis is 49 points. Look. We saw how the gap got closed up to Mercedes during this 4-week break, right? Stranger things have happened. I don't think we fully know what the order is, because, had Max Verstappen have not spun, where would he have finished? Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri, all of a sudden the McLarens are really kicking into gear. I do think, if I had to put money on it, it's another season of pain for Ferrari, but not pain in the way that we've seen. I just think it's pain in the sense that they're not going to win a world championship, either constructors or drivers, unless something dramatic changes.
So there's my point. That is another embarrassing season for Ferrari.
No, but the benchmark can't just be, come off the back and win the season. Look, if Ferrari were where Alpine were, I think that would be a bit different. But, Charles Leclerc was on for a podium. And Lewis Hamilton, I would say Lewis's race was actually really good, considering he had quite extensive damage. Granted, qualifying, not great. I don't think it was a great weekend for Lewis at all. But I would say, under the his race was not bad.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean I'm not disagreeing with you entirely.
No, and that's fine. You don't have to agree with what I say, and that's absolutely fine. But when we started the season, it was Ferrari and Mercedes, okay? They were the two cars who were kind of challenging. Then Mercedes...
But we didn't get to see McLaren.
No, I agree. But McLaren have now come up there now, and I would say they're the second best team on the grid. You've now got Red Bull, who came to this weekend, who showed a bit of competitiveness as well. Ferrari brought upgrades this weekend, same as McLaren. And yeah, Charles led the race for a bit. He looked good. He was on for a podium. But it's okay going for a podium, but we're not even racing for wins. And that's the bit where actually, as a Ferrari team, Ferrari a bit like Fernando Alonso, all right? You put them on the same pedestal. They're the top team. They should be challenging for championships. But they haven't done anything in however many years. So why are we still keeping them at that level? I'm one of them. I'm one of those people who go, Ferrari a top team. We should be fighting for championships. Should we? Should we really? Because all I see at the moment is just we're fighting for P3, P4 in the race. Oh, that's a good race weekend. No. We should be going for race wins. But we're just not doing that. Now McLaren are back in the fold. Lando's looking better. Oscar's looking good. You've still got George Russell there. Kimi Antonelli. Max will come into play as well. So when do we actually, as Ferrari, turn around and go, it's just not working?
I think it's too soon for that. I know you're upset. I can hear you're upset.
I'm not upset. I'm just a bit upset.
But Ferrari brought upgrades this weekend. Both the drivers said the car felt better. The car is not slow. Look, let's squash that right now. The car is not slow. Charles Leclerc was racing the boys at the front. There is obviously issues somewhere. Everyone is led to believe it is a power unit issue. And it's just unfortunate that can't be fixed until later on, because look, the thing is, Mercedes are Mercedes powered, of course. McLaren are Mercedes powered. We know they've got an unbelievable engine. If the rumours are to be true, then Red Bull actually have the best engine, but we know they came with a terrible aero package. Well, they made huge upgrades over the 4 weeks. We know that they brought a big upgrade package. They had the Macarena wing, which looked quite different to the Ferrari one. I think it's just we're in a position where other teams are able to make the upgrades that Ferrari can't.
Yeah.
And I still think a lot can change. I really do think we're going to see a yo-yo this season of who is the fastest. And I don't think it's all doom and gloom right now. I just don't.
I just don't think Ferrari are the pioneers of making change throughout a season. You've seen the likes of... Oh. Luke's headphones gone again. Oh, good. I just don't think Ferrari are the pioneers of making changes during the season. I think McLaren are good at that. Mercedes are good at that. Red Bull are good at that. Ferrari just aren't. I just don't see it. And look, I'm saying this as a Ferrari fan, so I am being critical because I want to see them succeed. But I just can't see it. In all honesty, I can't see it. But anyway, you know, Charles Leclerc, I don't really know what he was doing. He was looking quite good, then decided to take a spin on the final lap and basically just try and take everyone out. He almost took Max out. He almost took George out. He got a 20-second penalty, which was added to his time, dropping him down to 8th in the race. The penalty was given for leaving the track on several occasions without a justifiable reason.
Have you seen the video of that? Of like all of Charles's last lap infringements?
I'm currently watching it now. So he was just bashing into everyone, going off track. He was just...
It was like he got to the last lap. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It's like he got to the last lap and took the Mario Kart thing literally, because all the rules went out the window. It was was it a classic Charles Leclerc head loss? I don't know. It obviously looked like his car was not turning properly. I'd argue that Charles actually did really well to not lose more places on track.
Yeah. If
I'm totally honest. But yeah, I mean, there were corners where he just couldn't even be asked.
he was done with it. So
that was a really disappointing end to Charles's weekend and Ferrari's. But I do kind of think I do kind of think they finished where they deserved to finish.
Yeah.
In the not 8th. You know, Charles deserved to finish further forward, but I think it kind of sums up how you're feeling about Ferrari.
Yeah. Do let us know about Ferrari. Let us know what your thoughts are. Do you agree with me? Do you not? Do let me know. Let's go to Red Bull, shall we? Because Max Verstappen, right? You gave me so much enjoyment this weekend. It was a real pleasure watching you race. I mean, lap 1, that spin, outrageous. Okay. And you still kept it on. There is no other driver who could do that, right? Who wouldn't end up smashing into someone. Name me a driver who could do that spin and not end up crashing into anyone.
Sir Lewis Hamilton.
Well, yeah, but that was great. Then Max was just going through the pack, bouncing off people. He got a what did he get in the end? A 20. He got a
5 second. Wait, we have to talk about this. What is wrong with the FIA and their application of the rules and penalties to Max Verstappen? Right, this was a factual scenario of, did he cross the white line before leaving the pit? Yes or no? They have camera footage of it. Why was it being investigated at the end of the race? And then by chance he gets given a penalty that doesn't affect his finishing position. Oh, come on, give me a break. That would never happen. If that was Lewis Hamilton, right? That's it. They're taking his wheels out with nails on the track. They're then dragging him into the pit stop and then beating him. They're like, that does not happen to anyone else bar Max Verstappen.
But also, didn't the FIA give Bottas a penalty in race for pit lane infringement or something? But they managed to do that one. But you have to wait until the end of the race for the Max Verstappen one.
Yeah, I just think it was pretty mental. And look, Max was really quick this weekend, and I think he once again showed why he's Max Verstappen. There was a few classic Max Verstappen incidents, I believe, throughout the weekend. His inability to race against Lewis Hamilton without smashing into him. I think we saw some very aggressive driving. Carlos Sainz was not too happy about. I think he said he thinks because he's driving in the midfield, he can just smash into people. Something along the lines of that. I think his overtake at the end of the back straight. For me, some of them, and I know people are going to sit here and be like, well, Max knows the rule book. And it's like, oh my God, can you just shut up? Like, it's not about this knowing the rule book thing. I think you can sit there and look at it and be like, some of those are just a bit unsporting. That's just my opinion on it. And before you kick off, obviously I say every week Max is the best driver on the grid. I stand by that. He is. I do just think some of his overtakes are, well, if you don't let me through, we're just going to crash.
He did give some great racing though this weekend. I actually thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah, look, he was the most entertaining man on grid. That he was.
Max Verstappen, fair play. Isaac Hadjar, obviously penalised and had to start from the pit lane in qualifying. Then unfortunately clipped the wall, which then made him crash. Going back to the FIA, okay. Something seriously is going to happen one day, because the inability to make changes quick. Isaac Hadjar was in the wall, okay? There was no yellow flags. They were still racing as normal. Well, there's yellow flags, but there's no safety car. It's a point blank safety car, isn't it? Anyone disagree with me with that?
As soon as we saw it on TV, I was like, oh, yeah, safety car. It's like even Crofty and Brundle were like, oh yeah, no safety car. Okay, no, they're just racing as normal. That was obviously a Stonewall safety car.
But
like,
don't worry, you had to wait until Lawson and Colapinto and Gasly crash before they actually put out a safety car.
It wasn't until Gasly was sitting upside down in his motor that they decided now was the right time for a safety car.
I do really worry that the inability to make quick decisions is going to really cause some serious damage one day, because it took so long for them to throw out a safety car, where we're sitting at home going, that's a safety. He's not going anywhere. Isaac Hadjar's, beating up the car, literally punching it and all of that stuff. He's not going anywhere. So put out a safety. But they initially put out a virtual, didn't they? And then it went to a safety, I think.
I don't actually think it ever went to virtual. I think that's what Crofty said, VSC. But I think it went full safety. But it took way too long. I'd love someone to have like the timing information on that, how long it took them. Yeah.
Do drop a comment. Do let us know. But yeah, it is a worry. It is a worry. But Isaac Hadjar, difficult weekend for him. Unfortunate crash for him. Right, let's get into it.
Wait. I think that there is potentially a little bit more to be said on Isaac Hadjar.
Yep.
Isaac Hadjar, friend of the show. We love him. He's not having the greatest of times. I wouldn't say. I know we've spoken about him, and he shows us at times why he is definitely a great Red Bull second driver. But I think he's not got enough points for this at this point in the season.
Yeah, but it's Max.
But if I don't know. I mean,
look,
is that what we're saying then?
But I think over the years, when you've seen Max drive off with it and pick up points week in, week out, then it's a bit like, okay, the second driver. But Max has struggled. So I think it's hard to compare Hadjar.
No, I mean, you say Max has struggled, but I mean, Max is 22 points ahead of Isaac Hadjar.
Yeah, I mean, in comparison though to over the years, like that is nothing.
Yeah, no, that I appreciate that, but we can't sit and talk about the Red Bull and say, oh, the upgrades looked really impressive. The Red Bull looked good this weekend, And then, I don't know. I know it's unfortunate. Isaac Hadjar crashed out. We don't know where he would have finished. But
up until that point, though, he was going through the pack. Considering you're starting, I think he was P14 at the point.
Isaac Hadjar, all I'm saying is he will be feeling the pressure. And I think that's why we saw such an animated reaction from him when crashing out.
Yeah.
Because he arguably knew that Max was going to finish well. And then for him to crash out. I know he started from the back of the grid for like no fault of his own, but I still believe in Isaac Hadjar, by the way. I think Isaac Hadjar is going to have a very successful Red Bull career.
Yeah,
but I think in Canada, I'm going to want to see a good, healthy points finish from him.
Well, if that Red Bull is going the way that we think it's going to go, then that would be expected. I agree. Let's get into McLaren. Lando Norris P2, Oscar Piastri P3. McLarens are back. They look good. And, you know, there is question marks. Should Lando Norris have won that race yesterday? They probably could have. The undercut worked nicely for Kimi Antonelli. Should they have pitted first? But what we saw, you know, Lando Norris finished 3 seconds behind Kimi Antonelli. It was a good race for Lando. And, you know, Oscar Piastri has started probably the strongest this season, you know, after, you know, in Japan. But it's good. Seeing Lando Norris back in the fold, challenging for race wins again, it was good.
You can unclench your fist now.
I felt a bit sick saying that. Yeah.
I think what is most impressive about McLaren's turnaround is that it's actually put them on par with Mercedes. You know, every time we've seen Mercedes finally get in front, and I know we've only had like 3 races prior to this or whatever, but we would see the Ferraris battle with the Mercedes for a portion of time. But as soon as the Mercedes got in front, bang, they zoom off down the road. And that's it, gap created. What we actually saw is that Kimi Antonelli wasn't able to create that gap in the same way that Mercedes have done before the break. So I think, yeah, strategically, McLaren could have won the race yesterday. That will be enough for them, in my opinion, because they'll be looking at what they've done and they'll think, yeah, we can take it to Mercedes now.
But I think, you know, I said this yesterday, you know, in the sense of McLaren and Ferrari, the ones who came with the biggest upgrades this weekend in Miami. Mercedes didn't really come with much upgrades. So that will be something that will worry McLaren, that actually, yes, okay, they're closing in on the gap, but we don't know what those upgrades are going to be when Mercedes bring those. So yes, they've made strides this weekend, and I think McLaren will go away being happy with that. But they will be a bit worried still with what Mercedes are going to come with. Because if they came this weekend and they won the race, they'll go away feeling a lot more confidence. But the fact that Mercedes still won that race with less upgrades than what McLaren brought, still be a bit, you know, they'll still be a bit worried.
Yeah, I think every team on the grid should be worried about Mercedes. They're comfortably
Cadillac.
leading. They need to worry about themselves right now. That is Cadillac's biggest fear is Cadillac. I think, look, they're leading the World Drivers' Championship. They're leading the Constructors' Championship. And like you say, yeah, Mercedes didn't bring extensive upgrades. We know that they are bringing upgrades. I can't remember exactly. I know Toto was speaking yesterday. I can't remember exactly when they are coming, whether it's Canada or after. So yeah, Mercedes are still the team to watch. But I think McLaren have made huge strides.
100%. Yeah.
Let's not forget, they couldn't even start the race a few races ago. So
no. They'll be really positive going leaving Miami. And it's a big points haul for them.
And one thing I will say is I think it's so difficult because it feels like this season has been so long because in terms of like months, it has been. But we haven't had that many races. But what I will say is there probably was a small amount of concern around Lando Norris when he was seemingly very far off Oscar Piastri. And I think to come out this weekend and really, I mean, Lando was quick, you know. I think he finished like 24 seconds or 25 seconds ahead of Oscar Piastri, which is unbelievable when the only thing in between them was air, right? You know, it's not like anything was slowing Oscar down. So I think they'll also take a lot from that to be like, okay, God, because we've seen drivers come into new regulations and struggle. You know, Sebastian Vettel off the back of winning 4 consecutive world championships then gets beaten by Danny Rick. And you're like, what? How has that happened? There could have been some fear that was going to happen to Lando, I think, based off how he started the season. But that has been put to bed.
No, I think they'll leave they'll leave very happy with it. Mercedes, Kimi Antonelli is the first driver to get 3 poles and 3 race wins in a start.
You know, he could teach Charles Leclerc a thing or two.
Just a tad. He's a real deal. He is the real deal. And I think this weekend was a very, very professional drive from Kimi. He looked solid. Having that pressure from the reigning world champion in Lando Norris, putting it on pole still and having that pressure from Lando, that was a very, very solid race for him.
And let's not forget, his teammate is George Russell. You know, George Russell is a very highly regarded F1 driver. People consider him Mercedes team leader, the one that's going to go and do it. Well, Kimi Antonelli is currently 20 points clear of him in the championship. It's kind of crazy because we spoke about Kimi Antonelli last year and we said, look, that's a disappointing season for Kimi. Regardless of his age, there was so much hype around him. I think even Kimi would have looked at last season and been like, I should have done better. And then there was question marks over coming into this season. You know, if Mercedes do have the fastest car, like all the rumours suggest, is Kimi Antonelli really the man that they need there? Well, he's put all doubters to bed.
No, he was phenomenal all weekend. He really was. George Russell needs to stop making excuses. He really does. This weekend was very much the fact of, this track doesn't really suit me. You know, it's not really. It's the track. It's not really one that I'm happy with. I don't enjoy it as much. George, you want to be world champion. You've got to perform in, week out. That's what you see with the world champions. Okay, over the years. Max, Lewis, it may not be their favourite track, but they still pick up good amount of points. They still on the podium, they get race wins. If George Russell wants to win this championship, he needs to start turning it around quite quick.
I think finishing, I've got it here in front of me, 43 seconds behind your teammate is not where George Russell needs to be at this point in time if he's going to go on and win the world championship. I'm not just, going to jump ship. I still believe George Russell will win the world championship this year. But that might change at some point. That might, because it's these points are critical when you've got a car that is the quickest car and you've got 2 quick drivers. You know, George Russell dropped how many points yesterday? 13 points yesterday. You know, if you finish even P2, you only drop 7. You know, so he's effectively dropped nearly like 2 races worth of points in one race because he should be finishing second. If Kimi Antonelli is able to go and win that race, George Russell needs to be finishing at least second. So he will be in his head a little bit, I think. Kimi's won the last 3 races. You know, that's 3 out of 4 races Kimi Antonelli has won. George Russell would have come off the back of Australia thinking, championship done and dusted. I'm going to go off and walk with this. Well, that's not how it's played out.
Yeah, it's if you're George Russell, and I don't think you're necessarily going to worry at this moment in time. It's 4 races in, but I think it's if you get to the summer break and you're constantly getting schooled by Kimi, you're going to be worried. And look, if you're George Russell, right, you spent your time in Williams, you struggled there, it was rubbish, whatever. You get your opportunity in Mercedes, fine. You come in, you're alongside a 7-time world champion in Lewis Hamilton. You perform well, and all of a sudden Lewis goes, and you're like, right, this is my team. I own this team. I'm the number one driver. You come into this season, and at this moment in time, you're struggling against Kimi. So it's I still think he can do a good job. My money at this moment in time, and not because Kimi's leading the championship, but Kimi, I've been very, very impressed with Kimi. Very, very impressed. That is a very professional driver. Even when there's times throughout that race yesterday where I thought he was losing his head about the downshift and all of that stuff, he's lucky in the sense he's got a really good mentor there in Bono, and I think those two will just continue to go strength to strength. If he gets his starts right for Kimi, I think he could walk away with this.
I don't know. I don't believe you'll see Kimi Antonelli walk away with this championship.
We shall see. Let us know. But a very good day for Kimi. I've got a few. I did put a post yesterday, and there's a few little things I want to pick up on. So this was from Magnus. He said Kimi is going to be a new Max or Hamilton if he can make good starts.
Yeah, I mean, he's not done anything to prove otherwise. All I would say is let's not forget about last season. You know, last season did happen, and he did have a poor season. And I'm not saying we shouldn't excuse him for being 17, which is ridiculous. However old he was, 17 going 18. But, you know, we didn't see that from Lewis. Lewis was older when he came into the sport. Max was not, but I think Max also had a pretty healthy season when he came in. But yeah, I think you may well see Kimi Antonelli in that category at some point in his career. I don't disagree.
This one is an interesting one. So Russell was beaten comprehensively. No car issues, no problems to speak of, and I believed in Russell. But at this point, with no upgrades, Mercedes look dominant. Kimi is a real threat for Russell. I just hope Kimi doesn't do what Piastri did, which is fade away at the end when real champions peak.
Well, look, it's a long season. It is a very long season, and there's only 20 points between George and Kimi. So I kind of agree with you that George Russell won't be worried at this point, but I think he will be acknowledging what is going on. And I think he just needs to keep his head and just keep driving like we know George Russell can. Because in another 3 races time, we might be talking about how Kimi Antonelli had a purple patch.
Yeah. I mean, it may happen. It may happen.
And this is why I keep referring back to last season. Like, surely at this point in time, you're still looking at the fact that George Russell was so dominant last season. And Kimi Antonelli hasn't been, like I say, there's 20 points in it. It's still wide open.
But are we saying George looked dominant last year because Kimi was underperforming?
Well, I mean, was Kimi underperforming or was George overperforming? Or was there both?
Yeah, fair.
You know, I would say that Kimi Antonelli underperformed last year based on all the hype. And I know some people are going to sit there and criticise and be like, well, he was so young. I completely agree. I just think if you go into a top team like Mercedes, you lose that right to that sort of, oh, well, he's young, therefore we'll give him a bit of time. You've gone into a top team. The standards are up here.
Yeah.
They're not. You haven't gone into a Haas or a Sauber or whatever. You've gone into a top team. The fact that you're young does not change the expectation at all.
Mm.
And but Kimi Antonelli has come out this season looking like the man.
I'm excited to see what you can do. And if you're Mercedes, if you're Toto Wolff, you are feeling very confident now. You're feeling very confident. You know, coming into the race with not as many upgrades as the other teams and still coming away with the win. You'll be happy with that, knowing you've got big upgrades coming. Also, 7 of the drivers within the top 10 are from Mercedes Power Engine. You'll be delighted with that. A strong weekend. Toto Wolff will be leaving Miami very, very happy.
Yeah, I think Toto will be leaving Miami the happiest. I think Zach Brown will also have a big smile on his face, and James Vowles. But also, I think Laurent Mekies is going to be up there. I think he's going to be leaving with a big smile on his face.
Yeah, agreed. So the driver's standard at the moment, Kimi Antonelli leads the championship with 100 points. George Russell is P2 with 80. Leclerc is P3 with 59. And you've got Lando Norris in P4 and Lewis Hamilton in P5 on 51 points. And then you're down to Oscar Piastri and Max Verstappen. When you're actually looking at the constructors after this weekend, Mercedes are leading with 180. Ferrari are there with 110. McLaren are there with 94. And then you're down to Red Bull with a low 30. And then Alpine in P5. Do you know who the bottom one is, Luke?
You're about to call me Mark?
No, I was about to say Martin, but I basically told you it's Aston Martin.
Yeah, well, I mean, Aston Martin, Cadillac, there's probably not, they're both on 0.
Yep. Yeah, that is it. I don't know what I was about to say then. I was about to say something, but that is the end of the podcast. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. We'll be back next week. Still no F1 again next weekend. But what we got, a 3-week break now?
A 3-week break? What, like, as if we need that. Come on. So yeah, I think we go to Canada at the end of the month.
Yes. 24th, I think. I'm
something like that.
22nd to the 24th. And then we got Monaco, then Barcelona, and then we got Austria, which I'm looking forward to. But yes, this is the end of the podcast. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. Do check us out on all social media, TikTok, Instagram. We post daily, so go and check us out on there. Let us know what your thoughts are on the race. Oh, finally, Luke, who's your driver of the day?
Driver of the day goes to... Ooh, it's tricky. I'm torn between Kimi Antonelli and Max Verstappen. I think Kimi Antonelli did very well to race his way to that victory, but then you could argue, well, he started pole and then dropped back. Whereas Max Verstappen, strategy came through, many overtakes. So I think it could go to either of those, and I think it'd be very deserving.
Yeah. Do let us know who your driver of the day is. Do drop a comment. Mine would probably be Fernando Alonso for finishing.
Yeah, that took a lot of hard
work. Or Sergio Perez, one or the other. I'm joking. Right. Have a great week, and we shall see you soon. Bye-bye.